Well, hello, my friend, and congratulations on finding this video. Because if you have, I imagine that you are ready to connect with the most important relationship in your entire life. One where you are no longer chasing, fighting, and struggling with the concept of deep, meaningful connection with yourself or another. And if you choose to watch this video in completion, I imagine by the end of it, you'll have a clear understanding of exactly what steps to take from here so that you can release relationships that are complete and step forward with clarity on the relationships that are ready to enter your life at a deeply satisfying level. Now, I'm Danielle Lynn. I hang out in a forest and have conversations with cool people such as yourself who are choosing to get curious about the way they make choices and live life so that they can have a more satisfying life experience. So you're ready for the real stuff. Empowered relationships. Relationships that connect in genuine and authentic ways. I love that for you. When we have a certain desire for connection, we often have a conscious or unconscious sense of what we will get out of that connection specifically. And many times it's connected to things like, well, I won't feel lonely, or we'll have a lot of fun and laughter, or I just want someone to experience the world with. At the present moment, I want to invite you right now to ask yourself the following. When I'm considering connecting with my most important relationship, again, whether this is someone who's already in your life or an image of a relationship you would like to have. When I am considering this most important relationship, what do I imagine I get from it or I will get from it? This first question can be deeply revealing because what it can highlight for ourselves is it can highlight any place where we may potentially feel lack within ourselves and where we are yearning or expecting another to come in to fulfill that lack. Now, as humans, we are built to thrive in connection, not only with each other, but with the beautiful natural world around us, with our multi-layered experience within us. And although we live in a time when there's billions of people around, there is also an increased sense that some find of loneliness and isolation when they seek to experience authentic connection with another, but might be faced with experiences of friendships and relationships that seem unable to meet them at the level that they deeply desire. And this sense of prolonged isolation can create a deep yearning, a yearning within ourselves that is not filled by money, and it's not filled by work, and it's not really filled by anything except for a sense, a knowing that you weren't built to walk around this world like a ghost with a hole in your heart, so to speak. That is almost like a neon sign that lights up behind you that says, I want to solve a problem. I want to fill a void. And what happens is we then find ourselves navigating life and attempting to fill that void with solutions. Oh, I'll download this app. I'll date people. I'll forget that. I'll dive into work. I'll do this. I'll do that. Now I can speak to you about the story of my own journey, where I had attempted to fill many of my own feelings of inadequacy, of insecurity, with work, or with the promise of a relationship, Oh, if they're with me, I am loved. Oh, I'll deal with that behavior or that behavior as long as I'm loved. And what I found is that I was giving myself away in pieces for a mental idea of the promise of what I thought it was to be loved. And what I realized I was doing on some level is I was saying unconsciously, subconsciously to myself and to life around me that I needed to buy my love, that I needed to give myself away in order to be whole. And this is something I had chosen to do for a while in my life because it is how I knew how to move for a time. And then as I developed a new relationship with myself, I started to realize that I didn't need to give myself away in those ways to others, that I could develop a harmonious relationship within myself and with myself. And as I began to nourish that relationship, as I tended to that garden, then without requiring others to join in with me, I naturally began to cultivate external relationships around me that modeled the bar that I had set for myself internally about what I was willing to say yes to in my own life.
Anything that we would use outside of ourselves to attempt to fulfill that lack then becomes a requirement to stay for you to be whole. As an example, if you believe you require a relationship outside of you to complete a feeling of not being whole, then even if that was the most perfect relationship in the world, that person would still have their own life cycle, would still eventually pass away. And ultimately, if we require another person to be something for us to be whole, then on some level we have developed attachment with them. And attachment is not love. Attachment is not love.
From my experience, love has more to do with what we give than what we receive. Love is a state of being and an emanation. And attachment is more closely correlated to being concerned with what we are getting, what we are receiving. Now, in a loving relationship, ideally, both or all beings involved would be operating from a state of love where everyone is giving in a genuine way, in a way that simultaneously honors the self while honoring the other. What can happen when we have out of balance relationships is relationships where one or more is giving beyond what is healthy and sustainable for them. And sometimes those who are giving without receiving, whether the other person is aware of it or not. And we can see many of these dynamics play out. And a person may be confused as to why the relationship may not be enjoyable or why they can't seem to get through to someone else, when they may not be aware of or they may not be looking at the actual energy dynamics and considering that when we operate from a state of love, that foundation begins within. So when we deeply love ourselves, that includes being able to say no to external appearances of relationships that aren't choosing to harmonize with that frequency of genuine love within ourselves as well. And so the art of remembering how to meaningfully give and receive within ourselves becomes a profound ground of alchemical transformation in our relationship, not only with ourselves, but through that act of self-love, we actually transmute our magnetism into one that is more naturally attractive because we no longer require from anyone else.
Expectation is a killer of joy. And specifically, what I'm speaking about is when we expect someone to fulfill a certain need or role for us, then on some level, we are no longer embracing them exactly as they are. And once we step into that realm with someone else, it can become a battle between the selves. You'll hear this a lot in relationships where couples may not understand why their other partner can simultaneously appear to love them and yet not embrace them for who they are. And that is on some level because many of us who have entered relationships at some point or another had an expectation of what the relationship would give us. But more deeply than that, we may have had an expectation of exactly how this person needed to act in order to fulfill us. Now, in relationships, I have found that understanding what your personal boundaries are and then communicating that clearly with those you are in relationship with is an excellent way to respect yourself, to honor what matters to you, but it also is respectful to the other person. Because the nuance here is that you're not going to this person and saying, you must be this. What you are saying is, I have identified that this is essential for me in having a healthy relationship. This is important and this is negotiable. So here's what mine are. What are yours? And let's go ahead and explore what works, what configuration may work here for us. But there is a certain level of invitation. It's not requirement. Now, it's a requirement for your configuration with another, but you are not requiring the other to match your configuration. In a sense, it's almost like saying, here is the kind of puzzle piece that I am, and here's all the shapes that I have in that puzzle piece. And so what are your shapes? What are the different ways that we may or may not fit together? You're not saying to that other puzzle piece, oh, well, I require, a divot there, so cut into yourself so that we fit. I'm going ahead and allowing this plane to fly by. I don't really get planes around here. So I consider what's the symbology of the plane. It goes zoom. So the nuance here is that your boundaries represent a clarification for yourself and an invitation with another. It is an invitation rather than an attempt to control or change another person. It is your calling card for this is what outlines an FES for me, and this is what does not. So when we say yes to things we mean no to, even if they're like 80% there, if that 20% is really like not lighting you up, it may be an invitation for you to have a deeper sense of trust with your life, to have a deeper sense of trust with how you connect with the different possibilities emerging. And in the case of relationships, it often comes with a curiosity invitation, which will go on to the next point. If you felt lonely for a long time, if you've genuinely wanted to connect with someone and there's a part of you that goes, well, why am I not? Then one of the first steps that I invite to anyone who wants to explore having genuine, deep, meaningful connections is to first write out for themselves, I believe love works this way, or I believe relationships happen this way, and I believe I don't currently have the relationship that I most want, or I've had a hard time with it because blank. And this exercise is a fascinating one, because what it does is it can reveal to us the stories that we are holding on to about love, about connection, and about possibility. Because I'm going to invite you to consider for a moment that if this reality gives us, ultimately, the connection with what we consistently emanate, what we consistently live, what we consistently embody, is possible in reality, then on some level, what we are experiencing, if we are experiencing dissatisfaction with not having someone when we believe we should or want to have someone or something, is because on some level we are simultaneously holding ourselves with desire and opposition to the desire.
Now, a clarification here would be that not everybody has a deep desire for specific relationships, romantic ones or professional ones. Everyone has some form of connection that calls to them. But that connection can be with a forest, it could be with animals, it could be with another person, it could be a friend or collectively. The key here is to be deeply honest with oneself about the nature of connection that you really yearn to express. And it's not that you are attempting to focus that connection on a specific person or plant or animal, but that you are so committed to expressing that connection that you put out your tuning fork frequency saying, "This is what I'm about." And you discerningly listen to and respond for the equivalent frequency that calls back to you.
And I have found it to be lovingly effective to instead play with reality more in a way of, I do want this. On some level, this is deeply important to me. And yet, I am curious about the pathway in which it gets to connect to me. And I may have some sadness or anger because I have some prolonged experiences that are challenging about this. And yet, I know that I am more excited about living a life where I lean into the possibility of getting what I truly, truly feel satisfied, delighted by, empowered by, than I do grasping on simultaneously to something I don't want to let go of without ever letting myself have it.
Relationships, I find, when they are being lived in their most exalted level, are a dance and a union between two people in their moment to moment wholeness, their moment to moment experience of wholeness. And wholeness includes all your joys, all your wounding, all the stuff you like, all the stuff you don't like. Just a person who is in their space of embracing themselves as they are without requiring anyone else to do or be anything for them. And you have two of those people, two or more, come together. This becomes the foundation for authentic connecting. Because the premise then of the relationship isn't built upon, I need you to do or be something for me. It now comes from the premise of, here I am, here you are. I wonder what kind of fun and shenanigans we can get up to together. When it comes to calling in a relationship that matters to you, I often invite people to be really clear with themselves about how they feel about relationships and currently what they perceive the likelihood is that they will connect with a resonant one. The reason these two factors can matter greatly when it comes to your own life is how hard or easy you genuinely perceive it is to connect with something meaningful can make it so that you either perceive many opportunities for connection or opportunities for connection are hidden from your view. Because if you don't believe something can come to you that easily, then even if it does come to you easily, you might write it off as just a figment of your imagination. From the same way, if on some level you believe, let's say, all women are this, or all men are that, or all people are like this, then even if someone comes along that has the characteristics that you desire or would be drawn to, you may write it off as, oh, well, they're a phony, or they're not real, or it's not like this, because in your field of reality, it's not currently likely or so. So, in any relationship we are exploring outside of ourselves, we are really coming to the important relationship within ourselves first. Because what you perceive or believe is possible, probable, likely, and resonant for you will define what you give yourself permission to see, respond to, and keep. Even if you were to teleport yourself to the ideal relationship, if your own inner reality doesn't feel worthy of that love, or feels angry at a certain gender, a certain kind of people, or simply feels scared of that kind of connection, then inevitably you may find yourself summoning yourself out of that situation. You may pick fights with that person. You may create scenarios in which disconnection happens and then go, oh, once again, woe is me, the right person hasn't come along. Now, I don't offer this from a perspective of shame or blame. I do offer this as a perspective that when we require someone outside of ourselves to help us be more of who we are, we may miss the opportunity that we have in any given moment to connect with our authenticity with or without another, right here, right now, which allows us to remember that in order to have the best relationships in our lives, we are not required to find someone else first. We connect within first, and then we may connect with the relationships without. My friend, the shower has gotten wild. I look forward to our next conversation. May this have served you deeply on some level. We have links in the description, and I look forward to our next conversation.